all that good stuff. But Pam is
Hey.
my good friend. She is my special guest. I appreciate her so much. She's done so much for the community. She's done so much for she's outstanding, with her family. She's a teacher. Y'all saw her on the last show. She has so much wisdom and insight to share with us. I figured, why not bring her on to talk about parenting. I think one
Oh.
time we was talking about it, and I said, "Wow, I just admire you because you're a teacher,
Uh,
you're a wife, you're a mother,
yes.
you're an artist, you're a singer. You know what I'm saying? Musician. I mean, you do a lot of everything, and you do it so well, and you do it with grace, and you're such an upstanding woman, and I
Thank you
just
so
wanted
much.
to celebrate you for that right now because that's what we need to do. We need to celebrate each other a lot more,
Yeah.
and not try to pull each other down. You know what I mean? That's what we see a lot of in our communities, and that type of stuff. And I'm just kind of I'm bring this into the conversation, but that's the kind of thing that our children grow up seeing and feel and being
Mhm.
a part of, and then they start to repeat the cycle. It's another
Right.
one of those cycles that we have to break because you're passing that on to your kids just like anything else.
Absolutely.
Any
Everything. Yeah.
all that stuff. You know what I'm saying? So,
Right.
I just want to say thank you. And I want you to do just a brief introduction about yourself. If y'all wanna know more about it, y'all can go check out the other show, or y'all can go to
You dot
singtoinspireyou.com
com. Yes.
and you can find out a lot more about her. And from there, but just tell them a little bit about yourself real
Yeah.
quick.
Well, first, Milt, let me tell you, thank you so much for having me back on. This is always fun to do, and I always enjoy the conversations that we have. So thank you for bringing me on Intelligentleman podcast. I tell you, I learned so much from you, and when you told me about this week's topic on parenting, I was like, I was gonna be tuned in anyway. Like, this is so dope. And let me just say, when it comes to parenting, I am no expert at all. But the highest compliment, Milt, you said it before, when everybody compliments me or acknowledge, my motherhood, it means so much to me. Like, I smile from ear to ear when I hear that. So I appreciate the compliment. I appreciate what you said earlier. And so,
All
guys,
love.
hey, everybody. I'm Pam. I go by Honey Renee. And Milt is a longtime friend. We go back in the day since high school. And I just respect him so much and his knowledge that he shares and this podcast that he has and everything that he puts out. So I'm excited to be a part of it. And so we're talking about something that means so much to me. You guys know that I hail right here from Columbus, Georgia, graduated from Carver High School. I published my book this year, actually. 2020 hasn't been so bad. So I published my book, No One Has Wronged Me More Than Me. And it's a
Absolutely.
memoir
Great,
about my
great
life
read.
growing up as a little girl. And just overcoming some of the, emotional struggles such as low self-esteem. So I wrote this book to inspire young girls to simply love themselves. And that was it. And I talk about myself in a very creative way. And so that's been exciting. And so when Milt contacted me about this week's topic about parenthood, I was like, I wanted to be a part. So again, thank you, Milt, for having me on Intelligentleman's podcast. I'm excited.
Thanks for coming. I appreciate it, definitely. And definitely go to the website. Go buy her book. That's another thing. If you want to learn more about her, go buy the book and
Yes.
see what she's doing. And
Yeah.
and get a feel for what she knows and her experiences and everything, and see if it resonates with you. And if it does,
Yeah.
please share it and put somebody else on to it.
Yes. Even
Oh,
if you're not a reader, get it for somebody else.
Right. Especially the young ladies. You know what I mean? That's really where it shines. Your book shines is kind of illuminating for young ladies some of the
Yeah.
problems and issues they deal with, growing up, right? As
Yeah.
children. Again, we still talking about parenting everybody,
Listen.
and this is part
Yeah,
of good
we can.
parenting, educating yourself and going out
Yeah.
and learning.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
can on the outside we can look so confident, and sometimes we have those walls
right.
up, but you never know what internal struggles that people have. And for
Exactly.
women, and and sometimes we try to save face, we try to pretend in front of other people, but we just don't know how many of us just have a related story when it comes to some of those issues. We all go through it. So I'm happy to be at a place where I can share my story and do it in a way where I feel like it's purposeful and it's helping somebody else. So that blesses me.
Absolutely. And it blesses everybody. You know what I mean? It's just like we was talking about on our other podcast. The energy. I mean, the energy never dies. I mean, it goes out and it's gonna keep going. And no matter
Hmm.
what anybody does, it's gonna be received by those who need it. Period.
Right.
You can't stop it. So don't try to do it.
Right.
Just
Absolutely.
take it. Just receive it and be blessed. That's all. So I just want to take a minute and recognize. I don't know if you see the shirt, but it says "Real People, Real Water." Energy H2O.
Oh,
So this is it's a black owned energy
I
well,
like
excuse me,
that.
water bottling company. They bottle water. It's an artesian spring source that's nearby. It's pretty
Okay.
local. And so it's a black owned company, and we do a little bit of distributing for them as well. But it's one of those things. I want to start kind of highlighting different things in the community so people kind of can start seeing that there's more out there, and there's more places that you can support locally, as well
Yeah.
as because we're distributors, we can distribute this
Yeah.
anywhere, but definitely locally, support your black owned businesses, and
Oh
and
yes.
stuff like
Support.
this.
Support.
But let's
Absolutely.
let's let's jump into
I like that.
some of the meat of the of the topic. Let's get into this.
Okay.
I want to say, what do you have? What is this something that when you just think about parenting, something that just kind of stands out to you, just off the top of your head? Like what is it to you? Like,
Hmm. So what comes to mind when I think about parenting is legacy. That word always comes to mind, or legacy building. When I think about um, just the opportunity or how we've been graced, because children are a gift, and I have three
yes,
beautiful, wonderful children. I have a 9-year-old son. He just turned 9 in October, and my daughter will be 7 next month, and then I'll have a 1-year-old. I laugh every time. I have a 1-year-old next month. So I'm so blessed because my children, they are my absolute everything. So when it comes to parenting, I think about the opportunity to build a legacy. That comes to mind.
okay, okay. Building a legacy, which is good. You
Yeah.
know, it's something that we don't see a lot in our communities. I think we were talking about this once before, on a different podcast, and I think with you and amongst a lot of people that I talk
Hmm.
to, you know, that's one of the things we got to get into. We got to get more into thinking in that way, thinking long
Right.
term, thinking not
Oh,
just, because sometimes you may have to, in order to break a generational cycle, sometimes you may have to be the one to go through all the pain to get
come
to the
on
point
now.
where your children can live better. You know what I
That
mean? And
sacrifice.
through you,
Yeah.
right, and through you, they can do better. And sometimes it may be generations before the
Hmm.
legacy is completely built. But that's just
Right.
like, but that is our legacy as a people. We didn't, that's just like the pyramids. I tell people, that's just like the pyramids. Any great project, any great work wasn't done overnight. And
Right.
so,
Absolutely.
it took time, and it took phases. And so when
Hmm.
it happens that way, you can build something that's lasting, and that'll last for a long time.
Absolutely.
And so, I just wanted to kind of, say that. But, when it comes to the legacy, we really have to start planning more for what we're going to do once we leave, which includes, I think, and this is just me, like I include taking care of yourself better, on a mental and physical and spiritual level,
Absolutely.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because that you want to pass that along too. You want to pass
Absolutely.
those types of habits, that type of thinking along as well. What are
And
some
you
of the
want to be
things?
around as much as you can as well
Well,
too.
I mean, yeah, and remember, part of the ego and spirit conversation we had, we was talking about that. Part of that, keeping your body, in a healthy way, allows you to experience life
There you
for
go.
a longer
Yeah.
period of time, because that's your
Yeah, I like
purpose,
that.
to
Yeah.
experience life. So with that being said, I mean, in order for you to do that, you got to be healthy. So you got to
Absolutely.
do what you can to do that as well. But what's some other things that you think are kind of tied into legacy building?
It's the opportunity for me, and I think about this all the time. The opportunity for me, like when it comes to my children, like I really legit have that opportunity to teach them, to pour into them, to mold them, to shape, their thinking, and to allow them to be expressive. And that takes a lot. And that's always in the forefront of my mind. Like these are little people that I get to train up so that they can be these little humans,
Better than you,
that I get to
right?
that I get to put something into so that they can be a healthy member of society, so that they can give back to the community. And it's a way of me, like you said, taking care of myself so that I can pass, the baton. So that I can, I'm on this journey, I'm running this race, but when it's all said and done, I have some people that I can pass the baton to. And so when I think about it like that, that's what parenting is to me. An opportunity for me to, like we said, give back, because I am building the future. I'm raising the future the best way I know how.
Right.
And so those are some of the things that's so important to me when it comes to my children. And I think about, like when I was 18 and when we was coming into adulthood, and the preparation that I had, coming into adulthood, or the lack of preparation that I had, a lot of things we didn't know. And we had to figure some things out, either we were hard-headed, teenagers, but we had to figure things out, and life had to teach us. So when it comes to parenting, that gives us an opportunity to prepare our children for life the best way we know how.
Absolutely.
So that they could be, a force to be reckoned with in society. And so I get excited about that because, I have to be a good steward over that which God has blessed me with my children. They are a blessing. And so I have a lot in my hands to give into them. So, when it comes to that, that means so much to me.
Absolutely.
That part of it.
I agree with everything. I want to kind of take a turn and just kind of talk about, parenting, and just talking about some things, because I know sometimes, especially in today's day and age, it's hard to relate to kids, for parents to relate to kids. And so, sometimes you kind of feel, awkward. You may be feeling awkward when you talk to them, or, you may feel like something, is not really connecting, and so I just wanted to talk about a little bit like that, and just, these are some things that, every child needs to hear, that I got from a psychologist that I follow on Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
She's
Okay.
she's a psychologist, and she posted this. Her name is Nedra Tawab. So
Mm-hmm.
she's very she's a very good psychologist, and I respect what she says a lot. And so I just
Mm-hmm.
want to kind of put that out there too. But first it says, every child needs to hear, "I love you.
Yeah.
You are not a bad person because you
Right.
misbehaved." I want to stop there for a second, because sometimes when you see, people don't understand, like, discipline is different from punishment. You're not
Okay.
trying
Yeah.
to punish your children. That's not what you're trying to do. You're trying to discipline them.
Come on, teach
You're
now.
trying
Yeah.
to get some principle across to them. That is the
Okay.
goal. The goal is
Right.
not to make them feel pain. That is
Or
not the
bad.
goal.
Or,
You know, so when people, everybody, they talk about get back to whooping people and all that kind of, well, yeah, I mean, you can, but that's not the point. If you can reach a child without doing that, then you don't have
Right.
to. I always tell
Right.
people like that. In my experience, I've dealt with children, where, you didn't have to do that. Like, but that was always, they were always afraid that was going to be the answer if they made a mistake. You know what I'm saying? And so they became afraid to make mistakes, which, as we know now in today's culture of success, that's very detrimental. That's detrimental.
Yeah,
if you're afraid to make a mistake, or if you feel like, oh man, if I make this mistake, then you kind of shy away from taking those chances that could be those things that kind of change your life type of circumstance.
Absolutely.
So we got to stop training our children the way that we were trained in the times of slavery and all this kind of stuff was going on. Where for fear. You don't want to train your children by fear. You want to educate them, and that's what's important. That's what's really key. Important. That's key.
Right. That's key. It's about what you're teaching them. Like you said, every moment doesn't have to be about, like you said, the difference between punishment or discipline. When I discipline my children, I want to make sure they know the whys. So a lot of times I'm having some serious conversations with them, and I'm asking questions about that behavior and just trying to get in their brains to see what they were thinking. And a lot of times when it comes down to it, I look at myself or we look at dad and it's like, okay, we got to do a better job of teaching this lesson because, so I like that you put that out there. There's a discipline. You never want to have the intentions of making, anyone feel bad. You know what I'm saying? Especially little children, because their brains are still developing. They're not understanding, even with a mistake they made, sometimes they're not understanding that, oh, this is wrong. I've had a lot of instances, especially with, my children at their age. A lot of times they do something or they do things and they're like, well, Mama, I didn't know that was wrong.
Right.
So it's about sometimes that discipline is so effective when I can impart some or teach them, or explain to them and give them an opportunity. This is key for me to express that behavior, to try to even talk about why they did this or express that behavior. Right. So I go into it asking a lot of questions. So that is so key. And I'm glad that, that was a good point that she made, about helping them understand at an early age that we learn from our mistakes.
Right. And that you're not a bad person. It doesn't make you a bad person. I find myself having that conversation too. Like, you have to reinforce it too. It takes consistency. Like, if it's one thing about, parenting, it takes consistency and patience, because it's just like, I heard a wise man say one time where, he was talking to his student, he was telling him, he was saying, you can become a master if you can make this seed grow. If you can make this seed grow, you can become a master. Because the student wanted to become a master. He's like, hey, I'm ready now. I'm ready. Let me be a master. He was like, well, if you can make this seed grow, you can become a master. So he went and he tried all kinds of things to try to make it grow. He ended up destroying it, And the master came back and said, see, you were missing the one thing that you need for growth, which is time, patience. You got to be patient. See, you can't. The point is, you can't make it grow. It will automatically grow, but what you have to facilitate the growth, because that's how you facilitate that growth determines how healthy it'll be when it grows.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying?
Cultivate. Yeah.
So it was one of those things where it's like, wow, that was pretty deep, and so, but yeah, so I mean, you definitely want to make sure that you're disciplining your children and not punishing them. It's a difference. See, we got a system that's set up to do stuff like that. We don't need to be the ones doing that to our children.
And that's a conditioning technique. Like,
exactly.
We've been conditioned like that for so long. Even as an educator, I teach teenagers, right? I'm a 9th grade math teacher. And so naturally, math is, a lot of students' least favorite subject. And so I'm teaching that all the time. Like, I'm like, okay, let's try this problem. I don't care if you get it wrong or not. And it opens them up to, wanting to try it, because I created that space where I want you to make mistakes. That allows me to see how to go in and best teach you. And that allows you to understand, what areas that you need to work on. So I'm always quoting, and I repeat that in my teaching, like, mistakes are okay. Try it. I don't care if you get it wrong. This is where we're going to pick up, and this is where we're going to start learning from our mistakes. And I think with them understanding that, it helps open them a whole lot more. So I definitely agree with that.
So I'm gonna go through the rest of these, so we can move on to the next thing. But because I don't want to get tired. I know we can go on and on talking about this. This is a huge topic, everybody. Everybody knows how deep parenting is and how deep some of these conditions are that we have to kind of get out of, of how we teach. And I know we put it online and we have fun with it about how we, do this with our kids, and especially nowadays inside the pandemic with the virtual learning, people are going crazy. They like, man, I got to relearn all this stuff too. So I'm having a hard time, going through this, so. But it's one of those things. Like it doesn't stop. Like your parenting is not a job. It's your life. It's literally your life. When you become a parent, now it's part of your life.
Listen,
it's not something you clock out of and then you go. That's not how that works. For the kings out there, make sure you're playing a part in the development and growth of your seeds, of your children. You have to.
And I like how you do that. I like the analogy when you talk about seeds, because that's what it is. It's all about how you cultivate it. And you have to be all in. You got to be. I was just telling my mom that, like when the kids, we're playing and stuff, I'm playing with them, we're coming up with games, I'm talking, I'm trying to see what's in their head. Like, it's all in. It becomes your life. And, and even with that, and I know we'll get into this, you got to go through the list.
Right.
One healthy part of parenting for me is taking time for myself as a parent. That's key as well, because you want to be able to be full. You can't pour from an empty cup.
Right.
And so I encourage parents, they talk about getting lost in motherhood or getting lost in parenthood. You have to be all in, but you also have to take care of the most important, machine, which is yourself, to be able to, do 100%.
But that in itself is a lesson, right? So you're teaching your kids, you got to do the same for yourself. You got to do, you have to do the same,
Absolutely.
when it comes, when you recognize those signs, and when you do, and see, it also teaches another important lesson. Don't take your frustrations out on other people.
Right.
Because you're frustrated, because you might have made a mistake, because you might not be, where you feel like you should be. Don't take it out on somebody else. That's the key.
Right.
Because when you start doing that and you start blaming everybody else for your problem, then now you've lost touch with reality, right? Because you're not taking accountability for your actions. You know what I'm saying? And so
Absolutely.
that's part of it. But I'm gonna keep going. So the next important point. You are not, no one can touch your body without your permission. Every child needs to hear that. Every child.
Oh, yeah.
You got to have that conversation. Parents, we can't be afraid to have this conversation with our kids.
No.
Especially in today's, you hear about what's happening and what goes on. You know about human trafficking. You know about child trafficking. You know about
and
these
it's
things,
so real.
sex trafficking.
It's so real.
So you want to be able to talk about these things with your children so that they don't hear these things from somebody else. You know what I mean? So that you can raise them the way that you want to raise them, and not have, so when they have questions, somebody tries to tell them something different, and keep that communication open. So when somebody tries to tell them something different, they'll come to you, hey, somebody said this, but I know you told me this, but they're saying this. So what is that? And then now you can educate some more, right?
Yeah,
now you can cultivate some more. Another thing, it's okay to be yourself. It's okay to be yourself.
Yes.
I want you to kind of elaborate on that a little bit.
Yeah. So I teach my kids that all the time. Like you have to be you, and I teach them about self-love and understanding those are some principles that are so important in my household. And as a kid, peer pressure can be a lot, especially growing up and you're having friends. But one of the things that I keep repeating is it's okay to be yourself, that everybody is different, and they will eventually get it. Like you said, you have to be consistent in some of the lessons that you teach. I teach my daughter when she's into at 7 years old, she's into her fashion and she wants to be a fashion designer. And I teach her, as long as she's true to herself and that's what she wants to do, then that's okay. And so those are some of the principles that you have to continue to echo and continue to teach your children, that everybody is unique, and never let anybody influence you to do something that goes against what is true to your heart. If it's something that you don't want to do, you don't have to follow along. And I tell them exactly what to say. I don't want to do it. I'm not comfortable with doing that, or that's not me. I have to teach them exactly what to say. Yeah. And I always echo that you have to be you, authentically you. Right. And I'll remind them, like, that's is that what you want to do? So that's important too. I like that one.
Yeah. And it's okay to tell me how you feel. It's okay to talk about your feelings, right? It's okay to talk about your feelings. It's okay to feel however you feel. That's okay. We may have to talk about it, we may have to address some things, but it's okay for you to feel however you feel, because your feelings are your feelings, and we shouldn't deaden that. I think I posted something about that today, about not giving your power away. You give your power away when you don't give power to your own feelings. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is how I feel. Like, kind of like what you was just saying too. Like, if I have a problem with something, I'm gonna speak about it. And the children, that's what you're teaching your children. You want them to have that mindset state to where they believe that it's okay for them to talk about anything that they want to talk about. However they feel.
Have to know that. They have to know that at an early age. And that's key for me, is getting them to become activated in their purpose, getting them to understand these principles at an early age. I posted some on Facebook a while back, and it was just, I wanted to engage and open up some thought process about parenting. Parents, what are we teaching our kids outside of academics? Because we send our kids to school and we trust the teachers, and we know that they're learning, but a lot of the learning, 90% of the learning, has to come from home. And so what are we teaching kids that are non-academic? And some of the answers really floored me. Like, I was so impressed with some of the things that we're pouring into our kids, other than what they're learning in school. And it has to start from home. A lot of those lessons has to start from home.
Right. And I'm a firm believer, the mother is the first teacher. Definitely, we gotta hold them up, because as men, we have to hold our women up, because it speaks so much on how everything is going on, because you're either teaching your son how to treat a woman, or you're teaching your daughter how a man should treat a woman. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
I mean, that's what you're doing. And so if you wouldn't want your daughter to go through it, then you shouldn't be doing it to her mother. You know what I'm saying? You shouldn't be doing it to any woman, because every woman is a mother, sister, daughter, queen.
I used to tell my older brothers, I'm like, listen, you have to uphold the woman who's responsible in raising your kids. There should be no disrespect, at all. There should be, because she is raising and cultivating your seed. So there should always be a level of respect. I'm always an advocate for that. But you were saying something about, allowing your children to self-express and to be expressive. That's big for me too, especially having a son. because a lot of ways that we're raising our kids, we're conditioned because that was the way we was raised. And I remember a big lesson for me that I learned was to allow my son to understand that you're going to have feelings. So, a lot of times, especially when it comes to boys and they cry, we be like, oh, hush, don't be crying. Boys don't cry, and I have to stop people, like when uncles come over, or, when his tough uncles come over and they, trying to tough him up. And no, we let him feel whatever he's feeling. And so he can understand that. Then he can deal with it. We teach him how to do that and heal from it. But we never teach him how to suppress anything, and all in the name of masculinity.
That's not the move.
Right.
That's not the move at all. We gotta break that too. That's another one of those things, those stigmas we gotta break, because everybody has emotions, everybody has feelings. Nobody's is above anybody else's, and so we all have to hold them all to that same respect. And says, your feelings matter. So it kind of went into what we just talked about, right? Your feelings matter. You are important to me. We need to let them know, you're important to me. Look, this is my thing. I always, I'm telling you this because I love you. I'm telling you this because I want you to understand something that's good for you. I'm telling you in all these ways that you can say the same thing, that you're important to me. It's the same thing. I tell my daughter, like, hey, this is, I'm teaching you this because I want you to know this, because I love you, because I want you to be safe, and I want you to, to grow to be the amazing person that you are. You know what I mean? And so, you gotta build them up, just like we do it for each other. We gotta build them up too.
Listen, I quoted in my book, it was a quote, and it says, if words of affirmation, was food on the table, then I went plenty of days hungry. And because, a lot of the time, it doesn't have to be a big event. It doesn't have to be a reward for you to affirm your children. Right. Do it randomly. Do it, catch them off guard. When my son is playing a game, I'll call him in just to tell him he matters, because I want to plant those seeds. We did an activity, and it was an activity about the impact of positive words, right? And how much speaking life into people gives them strength. Like, it does something to your cellular makeup. It physically strengthens your body when you speak life versus when you say something negative. So I did this with my son. I had him to stretch out his left arm, just stretch it out to the side. And I placed my hand on his heart, and I tried to press his hand down. Now, as I was trying to press his hand down, I was speaking life into him. I was affirming him. I was telling him how much he mattered. And it was hard for me to press his, I said, now don't let mommy press your finger down. Try to resist. Give me all of your strength. So as I'm speaking life, and you can try this, as I'm speaking those positive words, as I'm affirming him, it was hard for me to press his arm down to the side. So then we tried it again, and I started speaking negative words into him. I started just telling him bad stuff, negative stuff about himself, how I didn't like this and I didn't like that, all negative words. And as I was doing that, the same exercise, I said, I want you to give me as much resistance. Don't let me push your arm down. But as I was speaking those negative words, he became weak, and I was able to push his arm down. And I taught them that, and he was like, wow, and I was like, that happens with anything that we pour into our body that's negative, especially with words. So it always counts. And you guys try this at home, speak life, and it strengthens you. So I'm always affirming them. I'm always just randomly telling them how much they matter, that they're important to me, and it works. It works because positive words strengthens us. It strengthens our body, our mind, our spirit,
It has a real effect. People don't they say, oh, those, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. Yes, they will. Yes, they will. They will. Because whatever affects the mind affects the body. So if it's affecting your mind, it's going to affect your body. And we all know the power of manifestation. We all talking about these things, but you got to connect the dots, because
Yeah.
once you start understanding that that's part of you manifesting your reality, then you know that you speaking life into your children, you're manifesting for them whatever it is that you're speaking, right? So if it's
Yeah.
like you said, if it's strength, then that's what you're manifesting.
Yeah.
It manifests in them, and that's a
Absolutely.
great exercise to illustrate that. That was so dope. I'll definitely go try. Well, I will try that one though. I will try that.
Try it. It's so fun. It's cool, but it'll blow your mind, because I did this with my team at work. It blows your mind, but it really talks about how, the power of speaking life, the power of positive words, can have on anybody. We all need it.
Yeah,
Strengthen
and I mean,
me with your words.
And again, I mean, for me, because I do that with my daughter, but I want her to see it. See, and that goes back to what we're talking about, educating. I want to teach them these principles early, the things that we learned later in life. We didn't really learn this until later. That's what you're doing. So teaching them at a young age is going back to what we was talking about before, building that legacy. You're putting something into them that they can use to put that back out into the world, and again, they'll be in a better place. By the time they get old enough to where you are, they're gonna be surpassed you. That's my goal. I always tell my daughter, I want you to surpass me. I don't want you to be as good as me. I want you to surpass me. That's my goal for you. Right. So and she look at me like, okay. It's so funny, but but that's what we got to do as parents. We got to do that. We got to let that. And again, that goes back to letting them know that you matter. Like that, we got to let them know. Now we're gonna go on to the other thing too. Every child needs to see these things. Okay.
Right.
Adults being loving. Okay. I'm just gonna go straight through this list. Okay. Adults being kind.
Yeah.
Adults paying attention to them. That's key. They need to see that you're interested in who they are as a person. Yeah. You see? Yeah. Adults showing their emotions. Again, you teaching. You're teaching through this. It's not in a book. It's not in a book. You're teaching them through the universal, the universal language.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, adults prioritizing a child's needs. They need to see that, because again, what does that make them? Better parents when they become parents.
Absolutely.
You see, so you're planting all this stuff. Adults respecting a child's boundaries. Another very important point. Because again, if you once you get older and you don't know, okay, how am I supposed to let somebody? How is somebody supposed to be respecting my boundary? Like what is that supposed to mean? You don't even know. And it's not. Know. And it's really not your fault.
It takes you to be 40 years old before you're understanding.
And it's really not your fault. You see what I'm saying? Right. It's because that's how you were raised. So that's part of breaking those cycles and the things that we must do as parents in order for us to be successful in raising our next generation. But now I want to kind of go into some stuff, because I don't want to just keep beating up on the parents. I don't want to seem like I'm trying to beat up on nobody. Right. But so we're gonna talk about this. Your parents are human first, and as humans, they might make mistakes.
Yeah.
Not apologize. They might struggle with keeping a promise.
Right.
They might not have all the answers. They might have unreasonable expectations, right?
True.
They might be unaware of how they impact others.
True.
They may want things to go their way. They might cope in unhealthy ways.
True.
They might be unaware of what they don't know. And see, that last point ties all of that together for me, because those points that she made about parents being humans first, being human first, and as humans they might do some of these things. That last bit, being unaware of what they don't know. See, if you don't know that those things are causing harm to your child, then
Yeah.
you know, then it's again, that was a failure for your parents, right? That they
Right.
didn't
Right.
teach you that, right? But this specific post was talking to the children, saying that,
Right.
and she's talking to the grown-up children. She ain't talking to like little bitty children. She talking about the grown-up children,
Absolutely.
telling you that, hey, when you look back, forgive them, but that helps you move forward into being the best, to the best parent that you can be. You can take that
Right.
as a lesson to say, well, you know what? Um, okay. You know what? I'm gonna go ahead and, kind of do a little bit, different. So did you want to take a small break real quick while I
Yes.
go through this? Okay. So
Absolutely.
I'm gonna go to something else. Pam's gonna be right back with us. And
Thank y'all.
no problem. Thank you. All right. So now I want to talk about signs of emotionally immature parents. Okay. And the reason why I want to do this is because I want people to understand that, sometimes us as parents, we may fall short, but it's one of those things where you have to know where the problem lies in order for you to be able to change it, right? So if you're emotionally immature, you may feel lonely when you're with your children, right? That's something I'm sure some parents may feel. And just know that it's okay to feel that way. It just means that you may be emotionally immature, meaning that emotionally you didn't get the support from your family that you needed when you were a child, right? And that's okay to feel, but it's something that you have to address. The relationship is one-sided, all about the kids. When the relationship is all about the kids, then you're not being a good parent. You know what I mean? That's where the whole, when people talk about, spoiling and all that kind of stuff. It's okay to spoil, but you want to make sure that it's done in a way where it still represents values. If a kid is doing phenomenal, I don't see any reason. They're acting responsible. I don't see any reason why they can't get what they want. Because now you're reinforcing that. You're reinforcing the positive behaviors, right? But you don't just want to always just be about them. Because even in those situations, you don't want to teach them that they're always going to be rewarded for doing something good. You know what I'm saying? You want to make sure that you give a balance to it, because spiritually, you're not looking for anything. You're not looking for a reward spiritually. Even if your mind is telling you you want some recognition, spiritually, you shouldn't be looking for any recognition. And that's something that you have to kind of get into, but it's something that, you can really do. So Pam is back with us.
Hey guys, thank you so much for that break.
I'm just going to talk about a couple more of these things, and then we're just going to discuss whatever, whatever you might see that we might need to discuss. I'm just going to go through this.
Yeah.
Signs of, I'm just talking about emotionally immature parents, right?
Mhm.
Not being, emotionally mature, and so they relate in a superficial way, right? You can only relate in things like, okay, well, my kids got this, that, and the third.
Right.
Okay, well, that's cool, but you gotta expand on that again, just like what we were just talking about.
Emotional growth in that area, right?
Yes.
Absolutely.
They blame you for issues they caused, right? So if your parents are blaming you, for issues that they caused, then they're emotionally immature.
Right.
That's what that means. So us as parents, we always have to look at that. And so I'm just going to go straight through the rest of these so that we can just get through this, but because I want people to see that these are some of the pitfalls of being a parent too. They have highly emotional reactions. They avoid vulnerability. Like the big strong man. You don't ever say nothing. You don't ever let you know that he feels some kind of way about anything.
Right.
That's emotional immaturity, because again, you're still passing on that same type of mentality. Like you can't You can't do that. You're still suppressing emotions,
Absolutely.
They demand compliance. It's not about compliance. That goes back to the punishment versus discipline. It's not. I'm not just telling you this because I want you to do it. I'm telling you because it's what's best for you.
Absolutely. And there's always a lesson tied to that.
Always a lesson. Like there's always a lesson, and it's so gratifying for me as a parent, as a father, when I'm teaching her those lessons, because I'm also teaching myself. Like I'm looking at it, I'm seeing it, and it's like a mirror. It's like, wow, I'm telling her these things. I need to be doing these things myself. I need to make sure that I'm doing this. You know what I mean? So that I could be a great example for her. And I'm not taking all of these things and for granted that I'm telling her that she needs to do, right? Because that's very important, because it causes confusion when I know we grew up with the whole if I do what I say and not what I do type of mentality. But we can't do that. Like you have to have that type of discipline within yourself to be able to do what you say, and so that way people can they can see what you're saying. And again, whether it's just letting your kids know or understand that there's some things that you as a child cannot partake in until you become an adult. And so that's a big thing too. They don't respect boundaries. You got to respect boundaries with your kids, whether it's privacy, whether it's possession, anything. You have to do the same, set those same boundaries for your children so that they understand at a later age. And age is not a factor of maturity. It's not just about the fact that you're older than them that makes you mature. It's about how you act, right? Maturity is an action. It's a way of acting. And so we do have Miss K. Paris said, is it a failure if your parents didn't know better? And I think we kind of talked about that a little bit, but I believe that from what the psychologist was saying, it kind of illustrates that, it's not their fault, but it's not their fault that they didn't know, but it's their fault for not finding out. So if they, and a lot of that stuff is kind of personal, right? So you have to look at it like, if that person was exposed to knowing these things, but they just chose not to do it, that's different. But if they weren't exposed to it and they just grew up that way and they didn't really know any better, then that's another thing. And us as parents, again, you want to, it's a team effort. So whatever it is that, your children, whatever it is that's dealing with your children, if one of the parents are emotionally immature in that way, and you go to them and you speak to them and they're not responding to what you're saying, then yes, it's their fault. You see what I'm saying? Versus, both of you not really knowing and just raising the kids that way because that's how you was raised. It's not really your fault. But again, as parents, we should always seek knowledge. As human beings, we should always seek knowledge. So we should always be trying to learn. And when it comes to parenting, that's a big one. You should be wanting to do that, right? You should be wanting to do that. And again, if you're not, then that's another deep-seated issue that you have to deal with, that you have to heal from, and so on and so forth. So those are some of the things that, I feel like it, kind of addresses that specifically. But if anybody has any more comments or anything, or they want to ask any questions, please feel free to do it, because hey, I want this to be a conversation. A lot of my friends, I went to high school with, a lot of people that I know, we're all parents now, and so it's something that we have to all it's a community effort, right? We need to get back to that as well as parents, as parenting, in parenting. We need to get back to that, and get back to the fact that we we need to do this as a community. I remember growing up, and I'm pretty sure a lot of you do too, where we actually would get in trouble at one house, and then when we get back, we get in trouble at our house too. And they would talk. Hey, they was over here cutting the food. So when you get there, they already know what's going on, and so it's already it's already ready for you when you get there. But again, going back to what we were saying about the whole punishment versus discipline, it doesn't mean that you should get a whooping and all this kind of stuff. It just means that you have to you have to be disciplined. You have to learn from your mistakes. And so with that being said, we're going to go ahead and close it out. But I do want to kind of talk about a little bit like what Pam was talking about, and she had to go. But I just want to talk about this, as individuals, we have to know that some people will not accept you. Some people just won't accept you. You can do everything for them. It doesn't matter. They're just not going to accept you. And that's okay. Some people won't like you. And that's okay too. You don't have to be liked by everybody. That's not a requirement of life. Some people won't change. So when you're dealing with, even if you're older and you're dealing with your parents and they're not changing, that's okay. I mean, some people are not going to change, and sometimes you just can't do anything about that. So it's not your job to do that. It's not your job to make anybody change. Some people won't apologize. You may never get that apology from your family. You may never get that, but it's okay. It's okay, because what's important is that you heal yourself, that you let that cycle end with you. You don't pass it on to your children and give them trauma based off of your childhood trauma, right? K. Perry says, people don't want you to chastise or correct their children. No, they don't. And that's okay too, because that's their children. But it's not about chastising, because if they do something wrong at my house, I'm not necessarily going to do anything to the child. I might say stop, but if they're at my house, then that should mean that you agree with me having some level of authority over your children, right? As a grown up, that type of respect. And so if anything that I feel needs to be addressed, it should be addressed. You know what I'm saying? But as far as if I'm not going to physically put my hand on nobody, you know what I mean? And if it gets to the point where I might need to, then I definitely need to reach out to the parents and say, hey, this is what's going on. You need to come on and back over here, because you're going to have to straighten this out. I'm just going to have to keep them separated for now, or whatever the case may be, whatever it might be. Let's go on. Some people will not respect your boundaries. Some people are just not going to respect your boundaries, right? And as children, teaching your children, that's an indicator. That's an indicator for them to see, okay, well, if a person consistently is not respecting your boundaries, like if you don't recognize that emotional immaturity in them, and you see that they're working on it and they're making progress, stuff like that, that's okay. But if you see that they're not respecting your boundaries and they don't have any intention on doing that, then guess what? That's an indication that you need to not be in that relationship. And hopefully you see that before you have children with the person. Some people will blame you when it's not your fault. Some people are going to put all the blame on you, and you didn't even cause the issue. Matter of fact, you might have been helping, but some people are just going to blame you when it's not your fault. It happens, But as I tell people, and in my experience, that's where your character, your integrity comes in, because when people see you and they see how you move and operate, when they hear somebody saying something like that, you can be like, nah, that's not that person, right? They might not even believe it, and then that just doesn't mean that they shouldn't believe it. It just means that they'll be able to come back to you and address it and say, hey, somebody was saying this about you, is this true? And then you can address it, and if it is, then you can be accountable for it. But if it's not, then you know that person was just not taking blame for their own situation. Some people are not nice. Some people just not gonna be nice. They're not nice. They're not gonna be nice to anybody. And it's one thing that people say, when you're going out and you in the restaurant, look at how people treat the waiters or the waitresses. Look how they treat the people serving them, or stuff like that. Look how they talk about them, because that's a good indicator to their character. If they're going to talk bad about people who they deem as lower than them, on a different level than them, then that tells you something right there. Some people are not considering your best interests. So that one's especially important as parents talking to your kids, because when you're talking to them and they're saying, well, my friends, then you can say, well, some people, don't have your best interest at heart. Some people are thinking about themselves, and so when you think they're your friend, they're not really your friend. They're just trying to get you to do what they want you to do. They're not really your friend, because as soon as you don't have anything to offer them, then they're gone. You see, and that's a clear indicator. And that's why, a wise brother of mine says, you should always do things for the sake of God. You always do it for that reason, because that way nobody can ever take advantage of you. So because you did it for the sake of God, nobody can take advantage of you. And God is the best one to provide. So that kind of takes that mentally, spiritually off of you. You might think about, reminisce on the fact that you might have spent some money, or you might have did this, or you did whatever. Okay, but the fact is, you didn't do it for them. So in that, you find peace. Okay. And we got one more thing we're going to talk about, and then we're going to wrap up the stream. I was recording this, so I will be putting up the video later. If it doesn't come through that great. Some people won't understand how you feel. Some people emotionally are not intelligent. So, with that being said, they just don't have that emotional intelligence to be able to comprehend how you feel. So when you explain it to them how you feeling and stuff like that, it may kind of seem like it's going, over their head, and that doesn't necessarily mean that they're a bad person. They could have been in some of those situations where they weren't taught how to see those things, and so on and so forth. So, it's one of those things where it's just wisdom that you can use to draw upon to impart into your children, so that they can understand this at a later age and be able to apply that wisdom to their life earlier than you learned it, right? And hopefully not learn it the hard way, because that's what it's all about. That's what it's all about, educating your children. We need to get back to that. We need to get back to educating our kids and making sure that we're teaching them the right things. I'm gonna say this too before I go, but I play games with my daughter, so I'm not against gaming. I'm not against technology, but there has to be a balance. And if you're not learning the things that you need to learn, then that means that you can't partake in the technology as much as you could if you were. And the reason for that is not just for, discipline, but it's because in order to understand how to use that technology, you have to understand the basics of life, because technology is not to replace life. It's supposed to be to enhance life. So that's just like this podcast. This is to get out to other people on a wider range, than if I was just going and talking to people one by one, right? So in that way, we're using the technology in a good way, but some people use it in a different way. But the whole key to the matter is that you have to make sure that when you're teaching children, that you don't demonize something that's not really bad, just because of how some people use it. You don't want to do that, because then you start creating that fear in people, and again, that's never a good answer. That's never a good thing. Okay, so I just want to thank everybody for listening and engaging. And wow, I got so much support, so many people in the chat. It's amazing. I appreciate everybody. I appreciate you all, staying through all the issues as well, because I was telling Pam this before we started, but I had them upgrade the internet so that this any issues wouldn't happen, but I noticed that it was still happening, and I think it's just because of the time that I'm doing it. So it might just be the network is kind of congested around this time, and if that's the case, if it keeps doing that, what I'll do is I'll start recording it and then putting it up there, and then you guys can do that. But they're supposed to be coming out to check it out if I have that issue again. And so thank you all for your patience. I really appreciate your support, and please, whatever you do, just remember, you are what you listen to. So make sure you're listening to the right things. Make sure that you're listening,